All right, welcome back to Money Meets Strategy. We have a fun topic today: how to grow a business, and how do you actually do that? How do you plan for that? What does growth mean? What are we after, right? So we're going to talk through this from a numbers standpoint of how to grow your business. So I actually want to define grow your business because that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so let's hone it in a little bit. When I say grow the business, what I'm specifically going to look at this through the viewpoint of is how do I grow the enterprise value of my business, right? So if we consider our business as an asset that one day could be sellable or saleable, saying that wrong, sellable, uh, how do we do that? How do we grow the value of our business? And so I'm going to throw out a few more terms that I want to define. Most people think, well, that means I need to grow the revenue of my business. So, what's revenue? Revenue is money that you receive from selling your product or service, uh, not money you receive from loans or from investors, but from what you receive from selling the actual thing that you do, whether it's a product or service. Most people, their gut instinct is to say, hey, if I want to grow the enterprise value of my company, I need to sell more. I need more clients. I need, more in that sense. Potentially is the answer. Let me throw out another term, gross profit. So what is gross profit? Gross profit is, so you got that revenue number, what you sold, subtract then out the expenses incurred to buy that service or product. That's your gross profit. So let's take an example. Let's say I sell a product for $5. $5 is my revenue. Let's say cost me $3 to buy that product, and then I resold it for the 5. So my direct expenses are the $3. My gross profit is $2. So it's what's left after the direct expenses. Now, when I say those direct expenses, what I haven't factored in at all is what it cost me for my marketing, for my rent, maybe for my salary, and any other overhead type items that aren't directly related to me selling the product, aren't directly related to me providing service, but there's these other expenses. And so after you take out those expenses, one more term for you, you get the profit. So that's what's left on your income statement. It's a financial statement. That's what's left at the end of the day after you bring in the money for selling the product and then all the expenses that are related, both directly and indirectly, to providing your product or service to your customer. That's your bottom line profit. So, again, going back to the top, we're talking about how to increase the enterprise value of your company. Most people start at that revenue number. I need more sales. I need to sell more stuff to have a bigger company to make it worth more. That could be a very incorrect assumption. And I would say for most business owners, that is a very incorrect assumption to know when to start. Because the other way to grow your enterprise value is to grow that bottom line. If you have a healthy bottom line, a $5 million business with a healthy bottom line could actually have a higher enterprise value than a $20 million revenue business with a unhealthy bottom line. And so we have to, when we're starting to think, okay, how do we grow the enterprise value? What do I grow my business? And again, in terms of enterprise value, do not just assume it's that revenue number. At all your networking events, at all your industry groups, they're all going to talk about the revenue number. You're not going to hear anybody brag about what percentage they're bringing to the bottom line. You're going to hear them say, oh, I did 20 million last year. I did 30 million last year. Um, don't be deceived. That doesn't necessarily mean that they've at all created a bigger business in terms of enterprise value. And so you want to be careful by that. And so when we're thinking, how do I grow the business in terms of enterprise value? What should I actually do? So let's just break it down. Let's kind of oversimplify it in 3 steps. Where would I start? Know how to grow my business and again, in terms of the enterprise value. First off, I would know my numbers. Where am I in revenue today? What is my gross profit today? What is that bottom line today? What does it take for me to break even in my business? Um, why are those numbers so important? Because if you have a poor gross profit or gross margin, um, then growing your revenue maybe doesn't solve the bottom line issue that you're having, right? Um, the better, more you can improve that gross margin, the more percentage points you can increase it by, the lower that break even point is going to be, and therefore the more profitable you're going to be. And so you need to make sure that you understand that, hey, my business model actually works, right? My business model earns this percent gross margin. I keep my overhead around this. So I really just need to sell 1 million to break even. And therefore, I'm doing 1.5 million. And so I'm bringing half my bottom line. And that's good. You need to understand these numbers and understand where you're starting at today. And you need to make sure that those numbers are accurate. So let's give a real life example here. Let's focus in on the gross margin for a second. Let's say you have a marketing agency and so they sell marketing services. That's how they're bringing in revenue, right? They have the people working on those marketing services. That's their direct cost. So all the team members who are working directly on providing the service for the clients, that's the direct cost. And then in the overhead item, you got the cost of marketing those services, you got the cost of the rent for the office, you got the owner's salary, and that owner also works on some of the client work. And who got other overhead. Well, if you caught what I just said, you would see, oh, actually their margins probably inflated because if the owner, who's an overhead line item, is providing some of the services to, service the revenue or the clients that are coming in, but they're not being factored into the gross margin, well, then your gross margin isn't what it is, right? Your gross margin is inflated, and therefore you're probably looking at your business wrong in terms of growth, because the owner is dedicating a lot of time to servicing the revenue, and so if you really allocated that amount of salary to the gross margin, maybe a 60% gross margin actually is a 50% gross margin. And that could greatly change how you plan on growing your business by just knowing that number. So step one in how do I grow the enterprise value of my business? You got to know your numbers. They got to be accurate. Specifically, you got to go know revenue, gross profit within that income statement. And so that would be step one. Step two, before defaulting to I need more clients, I need to sell more stuff, I would default to I need to plan for profit. I need to plan for something to be on that bottom line. And so if you don't really know where to start there, maybe look up industry benchmarks. What do people bring to what does a healthy company in my industry bring to the bottom line? I would really always encourage you to take it a step further and not just rely on the industry benchmarks, but really think through uh, what are my goals? Use the industry benchmarks as inspiration for what's possible or what's common. And, not bad idea to compare to them, but what is the bottom line that's going to lead to my goals? Whether that's a certain take home pay or again, a certain enterprise value for my company. What do I need to see on that bottom line to do that? And then from there, back into the revenue goals, right? So if I need to see 500,000 on my bottom line. And I already know my margin's this. Here's what my overhead needs to look like. And then, here's what I need to hit revenue wise. And so instead of revenue goal and then going down to the profit, start at the profit goal, go back up to the revenue. And so think about it a little bit differently. And I think you'll find that you'll have a higher enterprise value over time. And so step three, or here, backing up real quick. So step one, know your numbers. Step two, start at the profit, work backwards. And then step three, figure out the leading indicators that lead to success and review them every single week. So one of these is going to be revenue. One of these is going to be the margins, maybe the margins per service line. One of these, could be labor efficiency. One of them could be gross margin if you have the data to pull that weekly. It could be a whole number of things. It could be different. I would encourage you not to make it too of an exhaustive list. Make it something that's tangible that you can actually chew on week to week and, make adjustments as the weeks go by. But it's going to be a little bit different per industry. And again, depending on what your goals are to get out of your business. So set that up, do that, and I can guarantee you that if you take those 3 steps, you're going to feel a lot less stressed because when we're not on top of these things and we're not planning in this way, that's when things feel out of control. That's when you're just bringing in more clients for the sake of bringing in more clients, but it's not actually leading to a result that you want to see in your business. And so this is going to relieve a lot of stress. It's going to actually accomplish the goal of growing a bigger business, maybe not revenue wise, but enterprise value wise, which is going to be more impactful for your life. And it's going to be more manageable, and it's a much better way to scale a business over the long term. So hopefully that was helpful, and I will see you next time on Money Beats Strategy.